The fact that the weakening and even total destruction of Iran has always been the main goal of the United States in the Middle East has not been a secret to anyone. And now, with the coming to power of Donald Trump, the Iran issue has reached a new level. As you may remember, a few days ago, during his interview with American journalists, the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, bluntly stated that the chances of starting a war with Iran are very high. In particular, commenting on the possible outbreak of war between the United States and Iran, Donald Trump did not hesitate to say that anything is possible, and that such a scenario could not be ruled out. Moreover, Trump administration officials admitted that Donald Trump will adhere to the previous tough policy towards Tehran after returning to the White House. At the same time, they did not rule out that Donald Trump could soon order preventive airstrikes against the facilities of the Iranian nuclear program. Let me remind you that unlike Joe Biden, who offered Iran the lifting of heavy economic sanctions in exchange for abandoning its nuclear program, Donald Trump has never supported concluding any deals with Tehran and offered to solve the problem with the Iranian nuclear program exclusively by force. The severe rhetoric employed by President Trump regarding Iran stems from the influence of right-wing Zionists, who continue to furnish information and financial assistance to him. In simple terms, the coming 4 years will pose a significant challenge for Iran. During this time, the United States and Israel will do everything possible to weaken Iran as much as possible and inflict fatal damage on this country. In this regard, Iran had only one option for survival: a close rapprochement with Russia. And judging by how events are developing, Vladimir Putin has made every effort to draw maximum benefit from the current situation in the geopolitical scene. So, on January 17, 2025, a truly historic event occurred, which experts have already called Moscow's geopolitical breakthrough. The fact is that a few hours ago, in Moscow, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Russian leader Vladimir Putin signed an agreement on a comprehensive strategic partnership between Russia and Iran. My dear truth seekers, this means that Vladimir Putin has created a powerful military-economic alliance between Iran and Russia in the Middle East, providing for developing trade and economic relations, resources, security systems, high technologies, and military cooperation. All this has greatly enhanced the military and economic potential of the two countries. The fact is that thanks to this agreement, Iran received the economic support and military protection of the Russian Federation. In addition, Russia will transfer to Tehran the modern technologies necessary for developing the Iranian air fleet and nuclear program. In return, Russia gained access to Iran's economic and military potential and a land corridor to the Indian Ocean. Thus, Vladimir Putin managed to realize the main dream of all Russian emperors: to gain access to the Indian Ocean and the warm seas in the Eastern Hemisphere. This agreement between Russia and Iran is so beneficial to the two countries that even pro-government Western experts have recognized it as a real victory for Vladimir Putin. It is important to note that the Russian leader has been pushing for this agreement for decades. However, the globalists in Washington and London have done everything in their power to prevent that from happening. For this, they even eliminated the conservative Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi. And it was only thanks to Vladimir Putin's political will, wisdom, and patience that Russia finally managed to achieve its goal. It is important to note that Iran and Russia signed this agreement on the eve of Donald Trump's inauguration. Moreover, this happened against the background of an agreement reached between Israel and Hamas on a truce after a year and a half of hostilities. The fact that Israel has made a deal with Hamas indicates that Tel Aviv has not achieved its goal and failed to destroy this organization. This fact has already been called the defeat of Israel. After a year and a half of fighting, Israel is faced with a dubious result for itself. The Israeli army has almost completely obliterated the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth, killing tens of thousands of civilians. And yet Israel has not been able to achieve the destruction of Hamas. At the same time, the genocide of the Palestinian people and tens of thousands of corpses of women and children dealt a crushing blow to Israel's prestige in the international arena. According to even American military experts, the truce reached with Hamas is Israel's recognition of its own defeat. And against this backdrop, Vladimir Putin has radically changed the balance of power in the Middle East, thanks to the Iranian-Russian strategic treaty. Yes, Israel itself is not an enemy of Russia, but Tel Aviv is an ally of the United States. In this regard, Putin has created a new strategic alignment of forces in the Middle East, taking under military and economic protection the enemy of the United States and Israel. This is indeed Putin's brilliant maneuver, which disrupted the West's plans to form and strengthen the so-called Anglo-Saxon microregion. In this regard, sources in the Russian FSB confirmed that in 2022 and 2023, the British Special Services seriously considered the possibility of solving the existing geopolitical problems by physical liquidation of Vladimir Putin. But why does England need it? It is clear that Russia and England are rivals and competitors. It is clear that relations between these two countries have always been not the best. However, behind this lies something more than the rivalry between Moscow and London. My friends, I noticed that in recent times Russian diplomats in their statements began to mention the word Anglo-Saxons, almost as a synonym for the phrase collective West. For example, the Russian Foreign Ministry writes on its official website, NATO, led by the Anglo-Saxons, is escalating tensions around Ukraine. Who are the Anglo-Saxons? These are the ancient Germanic tribes who moved to Britain in the 5th century, and later became the core of English civilization. As you know, Britain is a little island that was great with its colonial possessions around the world, and for a long time proudly bore the status of the empire. Through its conquests, Britain was able to widely spread its influence, culture, traditions, and worldview to all continents. In fact, all Western civilization is based on the English cultural code, from Western Europe to the shores of North America and Australia. And this civilization, for hundreds of years, has become accustomed to dominating the planet. But now the situation is changing radically. The countries of the central, southern, and eastern parts of the Eurasian continent are rapidly developing. Today, the largest centers of industry are located in Asia, and the combined economy of Asian countries surpasses the Western one in many ways. China is stepping on America's heels, and according to experts, in the future will become dominant in the world. Russia, located between Asia and Europe, has also changed its vector in foreign policy. Russia's relations with China are at an all-time high level of mutual trust, which cannot be said about Western countries. In recent weeks, we have seen Vladimir Putin's increased activity in the international arena. Since the beginning of December, he managed to hold talks with several heads of state. Among all these negotiations, it is worth highlighting frequent contacts with the Chinese, Indian, and Iranian leaders. What is the real purpose of these negotiations? In my opinion, Putin's desire to create a strong geopolitical partnership on the Eurasian continent is behind these negotiations. In order to help you to understand what we are talking about, I will highlight on the world map those countries of the Eurasian continent with whose leaders Putin is establishing close cooperation, and you can also see neighboring friendly states on this map. This is almost 4 billion of the world's population, 74% of the entire population of the continent. This is more than 41 million square kilometers of territory. 5 countries with the status of nuclear power. 3 countries developing the space industry. 4 world's religion centers: Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. Access to all seas and oceans. Control over the world's most important trade routes. Access to any kind of resources and minerals. It is worth adding that several key countries in the region are united by another important factor: conflict relations with the collective West. China opposes the United States on all fronts. Iran, which the West declared a rogue state, has been under sanctions and embargoes for many years. India still cannot forget the grievances of the colonial British past. Small but very nuclear North Korea is ready to start a war with the United States at any moment. If all these countries stand united against the West, it will not have a single chance to maintain its dominant position in the world. The military, political, and trade association of Asian countries is what Western politicians are most afraid of. It will mean the end of the dominion of Western civilization built on the Anglo-Saxon basis. This is also the reason for the extremely aggressive actions of England towards Russia and on its borders. The recent events in Kazakhstan are yet another confirmation of that. Many experts have stated that the British intelligence services were involved in organizing the unrest in Kazakhstan. And all because Kazakhstan is practically in the center of a promising Eurasian macro-union. Attempts to contain Russia in Eastern Europe and set fire to the key points of a promising macro-unification testify to the desire of Britain to delay the moment of the collapse of the Anglo-Saxon civilization, the desire by all possible means to prevent the aspiration of Asian countries to interact. That is why the West hates Putin so much. After all, he is trying with all his might to establish ties on the continent, establish good neighborly relations, and conclude mutually beneficial trade and military agreements. The West considers his activities in this direction as a threat to its own security, and therefore it would stop at nothing to prevent Putin. The fact that the West will continue to try to physically eliminate Vladimir Putin is not in doubt at all. Since 1999, this man has regularly disrupted all the West's plans. For 25 years, Vladimir Putin has not only revived Russia as a superpower, but also changed the whole world, showing the countries of the global south all the advantages of a multipolar world. There is no doubt that Putin will go down in history as the man under whom the United States lost its hegemonic status and its unipolar system of government. The fact that on January 17, 2025, Vladimir Putin managed to sign such an important historical document with Iran, changing the entire balance of power in the Middle East, indicates that this man is indeed a political genius, who perfectly understands all strategic priorities in foreign policy, and uses the current situation for the benefit of the Russian Federation.